Hey guys, Justin here from CBI Off-Road Prinsu Design Studio. Today we're working on a 2018 Ford F-150. We're going to put a roof rack on it. Installation is going to be the same on the Raptors. We'll show you how to get it on. All right, so we got everything laid out here on the floor. We're just gonna start inspecting everything, making sure we got all our bracketry, all our hardware, all that stuff. So as far as our brackets go, we got two sets. We got P1 through 4 and D1 through 4. P stands for passenger side, D stands for driver's side. So P1 would be passenger side first bracket, and that's gonna be closest to the windshield. D1 is gonna be the same, where it's driver's side first bracket, closest to the windshield. So what we're gonna do is get all of our hardware prepped right now, and we're gonna start assembling the rack down here on the floor. We'll get it built to where the mounting feet are attached to the crossbars, and then we'll set the rack up there and be able to mark all our holes, and then we'll start drilling and everything. But it's really important to assemble it here on the floor and mark it assembled. That way, if you try to measure it out with a tape measure, if you're not square and you get off maybe a 1/16 up at the front of the windshield, by the time you get to the back, you could be really off on your drilling, and we don't want to do that. So with the rack fully assembled up there, we'll be able to mark very accurately where the holes are going to go. So apologize for all the talking. Now we're going to get our hardware prepped. All right, so we've got stuff kind of staged out. We got our hardware kind of where we need it. This is a page from our PDF. We're gonna post up, a close-up of this so you have an idea of the layout of the bracketry on the crossbars. So we're gonna go ahead and get that assembled here. This is our P1 bracket. It's gonna go on the first crossbar, and setup's pretty simple. It just slides on like this. We have our 1/4-inch carriage bolts that we're gonna slide into the channel. We'll get this loosely installed. We don't want to tighten it up yet because we'll still have to adjust it to fit the truck. But once we get it hand tight on here, then we'll go ahead and mount it to the crossbar with our T30 hardware back there. We'll get these all assembled along the way. We'll leave out the crossbars that don't have a mounting foot on it, just so we don't have the extra weight or the crossbar getting in our way. But once we get these on, then we'll go to the truck and start marking it out. All right, so we're over here at the truck. Our next step is we're gonna make our mark where our first mounting hole is gonna be. So we're gonna measure back 6.5 inches, and we're gonna mark that on each side, and that's gonna be our first mounting hole. Once we get this marked on each side, we'll go to the ground, pick up the rack, bring it up here, line up our 6.5 inch mark on the front mounting foot, and then we'll be able to mark the rest of the feet accordingly for the rest of the rack. Right now, we'll get our 6.5 mark on each side, then grab the rack. All right, so we got the rack up here. We went ahead and slid our feet to line up with the gutter on each side. We also use our front mark as a guide for the rest of the layout on this. So once you get your front holes lined up with your mounting feet, just get you a Sharpie or whatever marking tool you have. And it's kind of difficult, but if you come to the inside, you can reach and mark the holes all the way down. Once you get that done, we go ahead and tighten these feet up so they stay in the position that you marked them in, and then we'll take the rack off and we'll get to drilling our holes. All right, so now we're gonna start our drilling, and just for your information, this is an aluminum roof, so it's gonna drill really easy, so be careful with that. We don't wanna go too deep, pop through the headline or anything, so use a drill bit stop, or just kind of mark the drill bit and only go in as much as you need. So we just wanna barely penetrate, pull the bit right out. We also have this kind of weather strip glue in here. You can use a utility knife and just kind of cut it out of the way. What I like to do is once I drill my pilot hole, I'll use a 7/8 hole saw. Be extremely careful if you use this method because all you're doing with this is just scoring that glue, and then we're gonna scrape it out with a screwdriver. So if you don't feel comfortable with that, utility knife works just fine. Just kind of put the spacer centered and kind of mark it around it so you know how much area to take out. The front hole, our 6.5 inch mark, has an interesting setup. There's a channel, so you're gonna pierce through the top roof, and then you're gonna pierce through another layer inside of there. So you need to pierce through both those layers to be able to expand the plus nut fully. You definitely don't want to go through 3 layers, so just 2 layers of material. So really take some time to feel what you're drilling through. Maybe do some practice holes on some scrap metal or channel that you can physically feel the drill bit piercing through 2 layers, so you know you did this correctly up here. This is gonna be super messy between the metal shavings and the glue, so keep maybe a shop vac handy, just kind of cleaning up, or an air hose, kind of blowing the material out of the way, so that you kind of keep your area clean. So again, I know that's a lot of talking, but we really want to cover a lot of information with this. So we'll go ahead and start drilling. I'm using a 1/4 inch hole to drill my initial hole, and then ultimately we'll be going to a 25/64 drill bit will be the final size. So once we get our 1/4 inch, then we'll start stepping up to these guys. Here we go. All right, so now we're gonna get set up and start drilling our holes. What I'm gonna do is start with a 1/4 inch pilot hole. We'll drill that, and then I'll use this hole saw, and you have to be extremely careful with this hole saw because this is a 7/8 hole saw. All I'm doing here is this kind of glue sort of weather strip in here. I'm just scoring that with this hole saw just slightly, and then we'll kind of dig the rest out with the screwdriver. And what that'll do is that'll allow that spacer to sit firmly on the roof metal surface, not this kind of weather strip glue. If you don't feel comfortable with this, a simple razor knife can dig it out. But yeah, be extremely cautious with this because we don't want to drill this big a hole in your roof. So we're gonna start with 1/4 inch, then we're gonna do our hole saw to clean that out. I'm gonna move up to a 3/8 inch bit, and our final will be 25/64. Now this is aluminum, so it's gonna drill easy. Make sure you wear a good pair of safety glasses so you don't get any debris in your eyes. What's tricky about this is you're gonna pierce through the first surface of roof, and then you're gonna have to pierce through a second. So you'll have to really feel the drill bit, you know, obviously through the first one, and you want to be feeling the drill as you drill to that second piece. You need both those layers to be able to compress the plus nut in here. So if you don't feel comfortable with that, maybe practice on some scrap metal, just what, you know, the drill bit feels like when it goes through a surface, just so you know kind of in your mind where you're at in the roof. All right, so just to recap on it, we're going 1/4 inch, we're going 7/8 hole saw just to score the glue here, dig that out. Then we're going 3/8 and then 25/64. That's all we're doing. So be careful. I'll shut up and we'll start drilling. All right, so now we're ready to install our plus nuts. So we're gonna take a minute and talk about that. So you'll have one bolt in your kit that's a little bit longer. It'll be a 2-inch bolt. Slide on a fender washer, and deal that looks a little bit like this. This is the hex coupler that slides over. And then one of your regular black washers will go over as well. And you can go ahead and run up your riv nut all the way. And you just wanna make sure that your riv nut is hand tight up against that washer. So what we're gonna do now is check all our holes and make sure our depth is good. So you wanna make sure the riv nut sits all the way down and butts up to the top of the roof right here. Obviously if it's sticking up, you know, out of the hole, that's not gonna be good. It's not gonna compress all the way. So make sure it's sitting all the way down in the hole. So check all the depth of your holes. And then we're also going to put some silicone either on the lip here or around the edge so that when we push in the riv nut, it actually kind of smushes that silicone, creates a watertight seal around the lip of this. We'll put more silicone around the spacers later on, but we do need some around that inside edge of the riv nut. So to compress these, you're gonna need a 1/2-inch wrench on the hex coupler and a 7/16 socket or wrench on the top of this bolt. So you'll basically put it in the hole, hold the coupler, and turn the wrench. And you definitely don't want to over tighten this. You'll feel it start to get gradually tighter and tighter. And when you get it kind of where you want it, then you want to back off. You don't want to go crazy and strip these guys out. Once you get it compressed, simply take the bolt out and move on and repeat the same process on the next hole. So we'll go ahead and get our verification of depth. We'll get silicone, we'll dunk these in and get them compressed. All right, so all our plus nuts are now compressed. So what we're gonna do is we got the roof rack in place. Just do a quick check and make sure all your holes are lining up so that you don't need to kind of loosen these and move them around. Now would be the time to do that, but all of ours are lined up. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take our black RTV silicone. I'm gonna lift the rack up, and we'll go and we'll apply all our silicone on top of these holes, and then we'll get our spacers and kind of mush it down on top, and then start threading our bolts in. Okay, so just a quick pro tip, depending on the angle of your holes, it may help you to remove a couple bolts on the side rail to kind of pull it away, just to give you enough room to get that bolt in there and thread it in. So you definitely don't want to get crazy by bending it or anything like that, but sometimes just because the roof has that angle, it can make it a little easier on you if you just kind of leave that loose and kind of pull it away a little bit. Maintain control holding it because you don't want it falling on your vehicle. But just kind of hold it and then thread your bolt in. Okay, so now that we got everything tightened down, we're just gonna start filling in the blanks with these crossbars that we're missing. So we got 3 here. We'll get the bolts hand tight first and then tighten them up. And of course, we'll come back for our wind deflector. All right, so on the wind deflector, make sure you slide these T-nuts in with the threaded part facing down so you don't have any interference issues. Just kind of slide them across and get them roughly in place. All right, so moving on, crossbars are in, so that's complete up there. Lastly, we're just gonna get this wind deflector assembled down here, and then we'll install it on the truck. So slide your T-nuts in, make sure you got the threaded part facing down, and we're gonna use these shorter Phillips head screws to attach the wind deflector to the silver crossbar behind it, and make sure you use the included Loctite. All right, guys, thanks for watching today's install tutorial on the F-150 roof rack. Hope you enjoy your rack. Thanks for watching. As always, like, subscribe, leave us a comment below. Thanks.